Hey guys, welcome back to the Book Corner. I'm Hermione, author and lover of good literature. So tonight's video, the time it is doing this is like 10:40. I had to work. So yeah, but tomorrow I'm off. Yay, I'm off. But I also go back to work on Sunday night, so I work 4 to close. I'm totally happy with that. I am totally happy with that. And then I was promised next week I'm going to have 5 days. So I'm very happy about that. Very, very, very happy. Okay. So I told you guys in the previous video that I will be doing a review of You Like It Darker, which is a collection of 12 stories that Stephen King wrote. And every single one of them is I would say it's a certain aspect of human nature, and it's just really interesting when Stephen King writes this, because I literally got done with this book in one day. I just could not put this book down. This book was so good, and when I talk about Stephen King and his ability to actually write a book, unlike Martin, and I will admit, I did try to find the Game of Thrones. They did not have it. I will be checking to see if they do have it on Kindle. I personally want to understand what the heck is the big hoopla about Martin. I really do. What makes him such a phenomenal author? So, due to how bad this lighting actually is, I'm going to be using my camera flashlight, so that way I get these right, because I tried to do this video before and it didn't work out. Alright, so the first one was Two Talented Bastards. So without having to look at this, look through it, Two Talented Bastards is the first story in the book, and it has about 60 pages to it. And it's basically starts off with this young man who is, his father was a mega best-selling author. He made so much money off his books. Every time he would finish a book, it would instantly be gigantic. It's just big. He left the business because of his eyesight, and as we progress in the story, we find out that this visitor from another world gave them a box that activated, or brought the talent they already had to the forefront. The son tries it, doesn't work, because the box was only for his father and Uncle Butch, who was a muralist, somebody that does murals. So yeah, it was a really great story. I enjoyed it a lot. I really like just basically how they're just he's going into details, and he's really explaining the history of Pops and Uncle Butch and all that type of stuff. So I really found that to be interesting. Alright. Alright, the next one is The Fifth Step. I'm going to go to this one. This has 10 pages to it. Alright, so, see here. Alright, so, yeah. I don't really, understand what the fifth step was about. It's kind of one of those weird, stories, that you enjoy it, even if you don't quite understand what it was about. And that was the one I did not understand. Willie the Weirdo is the third one in this book. It's about a little kid called Willie. And Willie is called Willie the Weirdo by his older sister. And the only person that actually, understands him is, the grandfather. And he kind of, entertains Willie with these kind of weird stories that Stephen King doesn't actually write about. Because it's about Willie. And kind of he goes and he kind of, his grandfather gets, really sick. And it's really fast. It takes him, real fast. But the sister gets this, this really kind of sick, love for basically telling Willie that his favorite grandfather was going to die. Which actually didn't do what she thought it was going to do. Because remember, he's weird. And and she kind of, she's kind of upset with him and stuff like that. And, of course, it comes to the point where, it happens with most people. They get really sick and they can't go to the bathroom. And, they have to, be changed and all that type of stuff. Which I hope never happens to me. But you never know. That's the thing about life. So Willie the Weirdo ends with, on a kind of a sad note for the grandfather. But the family isn't too sad that, that they won't have to handle Grandpa anymore. The next one is Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. And this is one of my favorites out of the whole 12 of them. This particular story, this is the fourth one in it. I believe it's the fourth one. Yeah, it's the fourth one. So, it is about this guy called Danny Coughlin, who has this really bad dream one night. And not really thinking that it's going to cause any kind of issues or kind of problems. Basically, he goes out there and he finds the body. And he goes and he calls the police, and he doesn't give his name or anything like that. And the police able to figure out who the caller is. And they assigned these two investigators to basically find out what he knows, how do you know her body was there, and all that stuff. And for Danny, the most horrific part of finding the dead body was the dog gnawing at the arm. Which, he begs the detective to, please don't tell me you told them about the dog. So anyways, so he goes, and he literally is like, he already knows that, they don't believe him because of the dream and stuff like that. And what it actually does as things progress on is this detective is so, like, bent and determined to prove that Danny was the one that killed this woman. And he becomes obsessed over it. He literally is so obsessed over this that he just does not care how it looks. And he does things that would get him not only fired but arrested, like he plants drugs. And he releases the name of the supposed killer, who's not the killer. He causes this man to get shot at by the victim's brother. Thankfully, the poor man's lawyer didn't get hit, which everybody was not expecting that when they decided to go in for drinks. Danny is the scapegoat. And it proves something that sometimes detectives don't look at the other suspects besides who they think is the most obvious. So the partner is very different than him. She believes in evidence. She believes in probable cause. She believes in all this wonderful stuff. And they don't find DNA. They don't find evidence that he cleaned up. His truck is still as dirty and filthy as ever. And, so she finds out that her partner did all this stuff, caused this guy a world of, like, pain. And then what happens is, even after they have caught the guy that actually did it, and after he confesses that he was solo on this, the detective, or the former detective, is so been determined to put him away for a crime he never even committed, that he crosses the line. And you can see in the book, you can read in the book, in the story, his descent into madness. He is, Danny is not doing the stuff that he knows that they do. He willingly does DNA. He jumps at the chance of doing the polygraph. He begs the detective not to tell the family about the dog. These are not things that people that commit serious crimes do. They don't they don't care about if a dog nibbled. They don't care about that stuff. And even when he shows shows emotions, this guy literally makes fun of him for it. And I was like, oh my God, this man, I don't even like him. But, yeah, so the poor man had a very, very, very stressful month. But in the end, everything works out the way it's supposed to. Then the next one is On the Side of the Road. Another one that was a little bit difficult to understand. No, to that. The next one is Finn. This is the fifth one. Trying to get to it. Alright, so Finn. So yeah, Finn was definitely one of those weird ones. I don't really understand this one at all. I mean, I read it, but even I had trouble understanding what it was about. So yeah. Alright. And the next one is On the Side of the Road. Um, so On the Side of the Road is another one. It starts off with this big dinosaur statue. And it literally is like, you're just reading this and you're wondering, what is the point of this story? I'm not saying that it's a bad story, but it was one of those things that you just kind of wonder, what is the point of the whole thing? So yeah, now the red screen is an interesting one, and I did enjoy it, and I could understand what it was about, and it was about this guy. He's a detective, and this guy who confessed to killing his wife, though he doesn't mention that's his wife. Basically, he confesses, and they're kind of just wrapping things up like they always do. And this guy admits that the only reason that he killed her was because it wasn't really his wife. And so he kind of says to him, at first everything's great, and then they start kind of a little bit nagging, and then they get a lot worse, and it turns out that the reason that they're nagging is because there's something inside of them. I am like, what the heck? Really? This is your excuse? But what ends up happening is, basically, he gets home, and, his wife is kind of starting on him and stuff like that, and she wants a cigarette, and what happens is this red screen appears, and suddenly, her whole demeanor changes, which is weird. So that was the one. Then you have the Turbulence Expert, which was really interesting. This is basically a take on this idea of people having special abilities. So the Turbulence Expert is a guy or a gal who gets a phone call and is told, hey, you can be on this certain flight. They have the ability to keep the plane together. So when it hits turbulence, he's able to use his ability to keep the plane from crashing. I thought that was an interesting story. And it was. At least I thought it was. The next one is called Lori. Lori is a dog. I want to be very clear on this. Lori is a dog. And she comes into ownership of... basically, this guy gets her as a puppy. And kind of he goes through the trials and tribulations of having a puppy that he doesn't really want to have, but, he lost his wife, so, of course, hey, you lost your wife, let's get you a puppy, because puppies are great. Puppies are awesome. Puppies will change your life. And he's not exactly thrilled to have the puppy, so he calls her Lori just to, name her. And Lori ends up saving his life. And I thought it was a sweet, sweet story about a dog. The next one is rattlesnakes. So this one creeped me out. This literally just creeped me out. So this is basically about a guy who has lost both of his children to rattlesnakes. And these things literally just bite and inject venom and all. And they didn't die just by the venom. They died having an allergic reaction to the venom. And I was like, oh my God. And then it causes problems in the marriage. And he wants to try again to have another kid. And she's like, no, I'm not interested. And then, of course, she gets cancer and she dies. And the creepiest aspect of it is not the rattlesnakes and how the twins died and how the wife died. It was a freaking stroller. This thing literally just invades this man's whole life. And finally he ends up having to move away, and the stroller doesn't follow him. Because it's linked to the place. And he's like, so help me God, if that stroller sound ever he probably won't hear it ever again, just as long as he stays away from Rattlesnake Bay. So that was a freaky story. Alright, let's go to the next one. Alright. Let's make sure. Okay. The next one is The Dreamers. This is the next to last one in the 12-story book. So The Dreamers is basically essentially a group of people that are chosen to participate in this study about dreams. I thought it was an okay story. I will be absolutely honest, I really did like all of the stories that were in this book. But The Dreamers was a little bit not my cup of tea. But I did read it, because it's part of the book. And it was just, basically, that's what it was about. The last one is entitled The Answer Man. And The Answer Man is the last one. And it's about this guy who is, Phil Parker. And he is the son of a very prominent attorney. And he encounters the Answer Man 3 times in his entire life. And the first one is when he's just fresh out of college. He went to Harvard. He wants to marry Sally Ann. And basically, basically that's what, he wants to do. But Sally Ann's family is very much against it. His family is very much against it. Finally, they get married. But before they get married, he encounters the Answer Man for the first time ever. And this is during the Great Depression. So this is essentially just basically, he's very fortunate that he was able to afford to go to Harvard, because not a lot of people can. So, he encounters the Answer Man, and the Answer Man charges $25 for 3 minutes of answer. So he can ask any question he wants, and the answer man will answer it. Well, the answer man knows a lot of stuff, and kind of like does like kind of like a trial run of it. And he basically basically is like, you know, am I going to marry a Sally Ann, and you know, all these type of questions. And what ends up happening is he answers it, and sure enough, everything he said comes to pass. I believe this the first time that he asked the answer man was right before Pearl Harbor. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, so he asks the answer man that is there war coming, and he says yes, and when will it happen? He tells him when it happens, and all that. And that ends it. Basically, he's told he's not going to die, so so what happens is he serves his country, he goes to the Pacific, and all that. And then when he comes back, you know, his wife has already had their son named Jake, and they have this great life until Jake dies of leukemia. So the second time that he encounters the answer man is basically when he's being looked at for possible working with the senator. And of course the answer man tells him that you're not going to get it because, you know, he's going to choose someone else. The third time that he encounters the answer man is after his wife has died. His wife has died, and he's dying himself. And he goes and he encounters him again, and he goes and he's basically asking him, you know, questions about, because he's going to die. He's dying of this disease. And it was a really sad ending to it, because he does get his questions answered. That yes, you're going to see your wife and son again, and yes, everything's going to be all right. So the answer man and Danny's Bad Dream were two of my favorite ones in the whole series. I really thought it was really great. So with that being said, and I've hit the 28-minute mark. So what did I think about this book? Well, I really did like this book a lot. I thought that the stories were varied and they were entertaining. Some of them were not as great as the others, but they are enjoyable reads. I really advise you, if you're really going to psychoanalyze the book, make sure that you wait till, if you have something like this on there, to go away or buy it yourself. Stephen King delivers another great novel. It's so good, and I really did enjoy this because we do learn a lot about these characters and either how far they will go or what they do in certain kinds of situations, and that was really enjoyable. As I said, I enjoyed most of the stories. Like I said, a couple of them were just not my cup of tea, but overall, Stephen King did a great job. So I'm going to give this book 5 stars. It is a great book, and I highly recommend people picking up the book. Alright, so now I'm down to 19 books. So I am going to do one more video, and that will be whatever book that I'm reading. I am definitely going to be, the next book is definitely going to be a Kindle edition, because I don't know I don't know how many days I've got left in that book, but I definitely am going to be sitting down and reading it. And if I get done tomorrow, you will get that review. If I get it done in the next couple of days, you'll get that video. Once I'm done reading that book, because I think it's like Trick and Deceit is the one I'm going to be reading next, I will be pulling a book out from my bags to read next. So yeah. So I will see you guys around.